I don't like that terminology, all kinds of oils, because we know not all fats are created equal. If it's butter and avocado oil and lard and coconut oil, olive oil, those kinds of things, cool. What about vegetable oils? The seed oils, the canola oils, the soybean oils, and some of the other polyunsaturated fat-rich foods. So I don't like that. All kinds of oils. I wish they were more specific on that. All kinds of meats, things like pork, beef, and fowl, eggs, seafood, and vegetables. Remember, this is China where this is at. Wax gourd. I don't even know what is wax gourd. Is that a squash? I've never heard of wax gourd. Tomato, eggplant. I really have never heard of this. Brassica picanissus. That must be a Chinese food. I've never heard of that. And garlic sprouts. Anybody hungry for all that? Participants were allowed to eat with no limit the wax gourds and the konjac. So the konjac, you might have heard of shirataki noodles, the miracle noodles. I'm not surprised that's in a study from China. And it's basically all fiber and extremely low in carbohydrates. And they contained almost no carbohydrates, the konjac products. During the 12-week intervention, the subjects were contacted by mobile phone to make sure they were compliant and to address any concerns. Compliance with the dietary regimen was monitored, taking daily measurements of urine ketones. So they didn't choose to opt for blood ketones, which is a little more of a gold standard of testing for ketosis. They didn't even take some of the new technology with the breath ketone. They're still peeing on a stick. But if they've never been keto adapted before and the study was 12 weeks, maybe early on they see presence of ketones, maybe later on they don't. Like, that's a confounding variable to me. If I was doing this study, I definitely would have opted for testing blood ketones and not urine ketones. But they didn't ask Jimmy more. The control group received a pharmaceutical drug, polyene phosphatidylcholine, under the name brand Essential, and it's an oral drug for auxiliary improvements for toxic liver damage. It's approved by the China Food and Drug Administration and Pharmacopoeia. After liver function was normal, oral contraceptives like Yasmin, Sharing AG is the pharmaceutical company, were given to help regulate menstruation cycle in those women. All of the participants were required to perform resistance exercise, so they had to lift some weights a few times a week, 15 minutes, 3 times a week, in order to maintain their bone density and their muscle mass. Heavy aerobic exercise was not recommended. So they were trying to keep all the confounding variables out of the picture. And when you're doing a nutritional health study where you're trying to isolate, is it the ketogenic diet giving the benefit? It's good not to bring in these other things. Because people are like, well, they could have got more benefit had they, and then you add in some stimulus. But think about it. When you're trying to isolate what it is that's causing the effect, if it's a good or bad effect, you want to know exactly what it was that did the effect. And so they isolated ketogenic diet, and having them do 15 minutes of weightlifting 3 times a week is just to maintain bone density and muscle mass. That doesn't really confound it too much. A little bit, but not too much. Whereas having aerobic exercise certainly would. All right, so let's look at the outcome measures. All subjects underwent a detailed anthropometric measurement. So they measured body weight, height, and BMI. Body composition analysis. So they got to see their bone density, got to see how much fat mass they had and how much lean muscle mass they had. Blood tests, liver function markers, hormonal levels, and metabolic biomarkers, as well as an ultrasonography, which does liver ultrasound and pelvic ultrasound at baseline. They then did it again 1 month later at week 4, and then they did it again at the end of the study at week 12. The primary endpoint they were looking for was liver function markers. Remember, these are women with PCOS, with liver dysfunction, who are obese. So their primary thing they were looking for, can we improve their liver markers? Okay. Secondary endpoints included, did the menstrual cycle improve? So you ladies who have menstrual cycles, which is all of you, if you're of that age of this study group, you're going to say, hey, yeah, sometimes the cycle can be a lot more painful. Sometimes it lasts a lot longer. Sometimes the flow is worse. Like all of those things they wanted to take a look at as a secondary marker. Anthropometric measurements, endocrine biomarkers, and metabolic biomarkers. So body weight was measured on the same scale. The subject wore the same light clothing with shoes and socks removed. Height was measured using a stadiometer. Body composition, such as body fat percentage, visceral fat, waist to hip ratio, all of that was analyzed by a bioimpedance analyzer. If you've never had a bioimpedance scale, they're pretty cool. Tanata, T-A-N-A-T-A, is the big name brand if you want to get one of those. But you step on the scale, and it not only gives you your body weight, but then it breaks down how much water composition do you have in your body. It shoots this little bioimpedance signal through your body, and it can measure that. It also can measure what your body fat percentage is. So it's pretty cool technology. They're not cheap, by the way, those scales. If you go to get one, don't get sticker shock when you see hundreds of dollars. This ain't no Walmart scale where it costs you like $19.99. It's going to cost you some money, but it's worth it for the information you get. The menstrual cycle was defined as the number of days from the onset of bleeding in one cycle to the first day of the next. The menstrual cycle of participants at baseline was defined as the average menstrual cycle for 6 months before the intervention. Blood tests were carried out after a 12-hour fast, including follicle-stimulating hormone, that's FSH, luteinizing hormone, LH, estradiol, testosterone, progesterone, prolactin, ALT, AST, total cholesterol, triglycerides, HDL, LDL, and blood glucose. Blood samples used to assess ovarian function were collected at the same base of each subject's menstrual cycle. Generally, it was on day 3 to 5. Liver ultrasound was performed in all subjects for an assessment of a fatty liver disease. The hepatic fat accumulation grade was calculated as absent with a score of 0, mild with a score of 1, moderate with a score of 2, and severe with a score of 3. This uses a 6-point scoring system based on the echo contrast, liver brightness, deep attenuation, and vascular blurring. So they're basically trying to see how bad is the liver dysfunction. Additionally, they looked at an ultrasound for looking for either 12 or more follicles with 2 to 9 millimeters of diameter, increasing ovarian volume in at least one of the ovaries. So they're looking for any signs of PCOS and liver dysfunction. They're trying to make sure in these people that we're trying to improve the PCOS, improve the liver dysfunction, are they starting at baseline with having disease? And so it's pretty cool that they tested all that. All right, the statistical analysis went through all the qualitative data measures that we always talk about on these studies. So let's just jump to the results. Of the 20 eligible participants enrolled in the pilot study, all of them were randomly assigned to a ketogenic diet or to the control group. A total of 18 participants completed the study. There were 8 people in the ketogenic diet group. So the 2 who dropped out of the 20, the 2 who dropped out were both in the ketogenic group. The control group had 10. The reason for not completing the study was withdrawn consent, unable to do the ketogenic diet because of business travel. That's what both of the people who dropped out. I'm traveling, I can't do it. That's bogus. Just because you travel for business, you can't do keto? Oh, I wish they had called Jimmy more, because I could have easily helped them, and any of us in the keto community could have easily helped them. It's so easy when you're traveling. Is it more difficult? Yeah, it is, but it's not impossible. The baseline characteristics of, and by the way, did they not know they business traveled before they signed up for the study? That's just so crazy to me. Did you not know you had a job that had you travel for business before you signed up to be a part of a pilot study? Anyway, The baseline characteristics of included participants were shown in Table 1. The average age of the control group, 29. The average age of the ketogenic diet group, 31. Average weight in kilograms for the control group, 75. 87 for keto. 158 centimeters for the height. 163 for the keto. BMI 33 for the control group. Remember, they're just on pharmacological treatment. The ketogenic diet group was 30. Menstrual cycle, I'm not sure what that means. It says day mean plus SD. I'm not sure what that means. It says 63 for the control group, 72.5 for the ketogenic diet. So that's the breakdown. The two treatment groups were generally well balanced when it came to age, height, BMI, and menstrual cycle. All right. In Table 2, so let me find Table 2. Here it is. There were statistically significant reductions in the BMI. So let's take a look at that. So BMI in the control group, they went from 29.82, then after 1 month of being on the drug therapy, 29.64, and by week 12, 29.20. So statistically, they didn't really change that much. Meanwhile, in the ketogenic group, 32.81 was the beginning BMI. After 4 weeks, 30.77, and after 12 weeks, 28.33. So they dropped over 4 kilo, or over 4 kilo. Body fat in the control group, 25.58. After 4 weeks, 25.28. After 12 weeks, 24.85. So going down, but not significantly. In the keto group, body fat went from 35.38, 31.51, 28.57. It dropped by like 7%. That's huge drop in 12 weeks. So big difference in those categories. All right. Hormonal levels. After 12 weeks of intervention, the menstrual cycles were significantly shortened in both groups. Remember, the one group was taking a drug that was supposed to help the liver function and some of the other bodily things that cause the fatty liver. There was no statistical significance between the two groups. In addition, there were statistically significant reductions in plasma E and P levels. Blood tests showed that there were no significant within group and between group differences in total cholesterol, triglycerides, HDL, LDL from baseline in both groups. However, there was a significant reduction in glucose observed in the ketogenic diet after 12 weeks. So that's interesting to me because one of the hallmarks of a ketogenic diet when it comes to your lipids, your cholesterol, is we see triglycerides fall like a rock. So the fact that they saw no difference in triglycerides along with HDL, LDL, And remember, HDL is another one. I would have predicted over the pharmacological approach, I would have predicted triglycerides would have dropped significantly below 100. Just after 12 weeks, very easily. And HDL, eating a 70 to 75% fat diet, would easily go up over 50. And we didn't see that in this study. So that's interesting to me. That runs counter to what we've seen in every other research study I've ever seen of a ketogenic diet. So that's interesting. What about liver function markers? We saw basically all the different markers improve. There were statistically significant improvements in ALT and AST in the ketogenic diet group. The plasma ALT and AST of ketogenic diet at 12 weeks was significantly lower than that of the control group, which suggested the superiority of a ketogenic diet over conventional treatment in trying to treat liver function. And again, as we said earlier, when you're not feeding your body all the crap that then the liver has to process, specifically fructose and other carbohydrates, you're not going to have those issues anymore. This is what makes keto so brilliantly healthy. It's what doesn't really get talked about enough in the vilification of red meat,